Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the July 23rd, 2024 Community Services Committee meeting to order. Grimsby is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandrock, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara and Grimsby stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. Before we approve the agenda, I'd like to take a minute to introduce Victoria Steele, our town clerk. For those that have not met Victoria yet, she's been our town clerk since January of this year, and I will add she's wonderful and we'd love her, so she is here with us today. So welcome, Victoria. Can I get a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda? Okay, moved by Councillor Korstanji, seconded by Member Laird. Resolved that the July 23rd, 2024 Community Services Committee agenda be approved. All in favor? That's carried. Receipt of previous minutes. Can I get a mover and a seconder to receive the previous minutes? Okay, Councillor Korstanji would like to lift. Which item are you looking to lift?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, the Grimsby Green Advisory Committee, July 17th, 2024. And I'd like to lift item 9, Invasive Species Action Plan, GG 24-037.
So we'll go ahead and approve the other minutes for Community Services, May 28th, 2024, Culture Advisory Committee, June 6th, Age Friendly Advisory Committee, June 18th, Grimsby Green Advisory Committee, June 19th. So for those items, can I get a mover and a seconder? Okay, moved by Councillor DeFlavio. I had to think about that. Seconded by Member Breather. All in favor? Okay. And that's carried. Okay, and can I get a mover and a seconder to lift the item Councillor Korstanji has requested, Grimsby Green Advisory Committee, July 17th, 2024.
She's moving, right?
She's moving it. Yes. So Councillor DeFlavio is a seconder. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Korstanji.
Thank you, through Chair. I just had a concern with this without having a timeline. So it's a motion for action on invasive species, an action plan. So there isn't a specified timeline to have the report back. And my concern is invasive species are an issue in many areas. But just to use an example, the Grand Oak Park, a substantial amount of money was donated and put into this park, and they had to remove a lot of the invasive species. And I think that we need a timeline so that this doesn't happen again, so that we're not essentially wasting money that we're putting into parks. So I would actually like to see a timeline for the motion to come forward so that we can properly deal with these things. Thank you.
Our clerk will speak to that.
The reason we actually removed a timeline was because we weren't sure how, we didn't have the appropriate staff at this meeting to answer whether any work's been complete, where a status update is. So perhaps we could flag this and include a quick memo on our council agenda to indicate a timeline. Would that be okay? Again, I don't have the right people here to answer that question, but if that works on our council agenda on August 12th, we could put a timeline for you there.
Director Sweeney, go ahead.
The only thing I'll just add to that is because it does reference two master plans that are underway, I can say at least there would be some sort of feedback in the short term because that work is currently occurring. So if it was going to be added into the plan, certainly for the Parks Master Plan, it would need to be fairly soon. And I would say it would be the same thing for the Transportation Master Plan. So we can certainly take that away just because, as I said, that some of that work of compiling that stuff is happening right now. It would also have to look at the costing with it too, because I'm sure it adds scope to both of those projects.
Thank you, through Chair. Yeah, I completely agree that, with the Parks Master Plan and stuff like that, my concern is just the length of time that might take and what can happen in the meantime. So if we have sort of a temporary plan until a more permanent plan is in place, just so we don't end up back in the situation we were, and then, I think at least 50,000 has gone into that park already, so we don't want to see money wasted and facilities gone just because, we're waiting for the timeline. So I'm perfectly happy if a memo comes back to council. I'd be happy with that.
Okay, so we're just looking for a vote right now to approve the Grimsby Green Advisory Committee minutes of July 17th, 2024. So all in favor? Okay, that's carried. So we're moving on to delegations. We have a delegation from David Kelly regarding fair pickleball play. So David, if you could please come to the podium. So Mr. Kelly, is this an updated version? Like, have we seen this? Was this the?
The one that I sent today is an updated version,
Okay,
yes.
okay, thank
you. So delete the older version that I sent on July the 10th.
Okay, thank you.
My name's David Kelly. I'm a member of a newly formed group called the Grimsby Residents for Fair Pickleball Play. And hopefully we don't last long. Hopefully people, that we can work out a very cooperative and good arrangement for everybody. So in the next slide, please. So we're a recently formed organization, open to all, who are concerned with the way the sport of pickleball is being run right now in Grimsby. We decided on this name to emphasize the importance of fair and free access for the public to the town pickleball courts. Can you read that, or? Okay. Residents in the town are increasingly upset about their exclusion from free access to town courts. I'm thinking particularly of Mayfair here. Their tax dollars paid for these courts, and they're voicing their valid concerns across social media platforms, such as Facebook and Twitter. There's been insufficient public consultation in giving the Grimsby Pickleball Association so much authority in controlling access to the town courts. Recent decisions on court allocations have disproportionately benefited the GPA, the Grimsby Pickleball Association, at the expense of tax-paying residents. While pickleball is being played for free by residents and tourists in many municipalities across North America, Grimsby is supporting a membership organization which limits public access to just one town court. Next slide, please. So we're requesting fair treatment for Grimsby residents overall for playing pickleball. We are requesting in this delegation that equal time be allocated for free public access to pickleball play versus under the control of the Grimsby Pickleball Association. Until recently, this fair allocation at the Mayfair courts was achieved with the provision of 2 courts for free public access and 2 courts under the management of the GPA, Grimsby Pickleball Association. Now the GPA has control of 3 of those courts, and free public access has been diminished to 1 court. There are concerns that this free public access will be diminished further both at Mayfair and in the model for pickleball play at the new Peach King Center under construction. This would be grossly unfair for Grimsby residents. Put another way, 29,000 town residents have to share one town court at Mayfair, while 150 members of GPA have control of 3 courts. This is not fair. The sport of pickleball has now grown exponentially in the past few years, and many residents are being forced to go to neighboring municipalities to play. There's just too little public access to Grimsby courts, and although the town wants us to play in our own municipality, fewer and fewer people are doing so. Recently, there were lines added to Court 4 in the Grimsby Tennis Club. Adding lines to tennis courts does not create appropriate play venues because the nets are not regulation height for pickleball, and it sets up incorrect learning of the sport. The GPA wouldn't want to use these courts, and neither should the public. Next slide, please. Free public access means that families and residents can drop in at the courts and play pickleball without the fear of being ejected from the court and feeling humiliated. It's happened that people have organized play with their friends, gone to a court and begun to play, and somebody's told them to leave. Why have they told them to leave? Because of some unposted event run by the association, GPA. They shouldn't have to pay a membership to access the courts. The courts cost the town and its residents over $200,000. The GPA did not pay for these courts. The residents did through their tax dollars. They should be entitled to fair access to the pickleball courts without having to pay additional fees. There's several ways to manage free public play, such as a paddle saddle. Who here knows what a paddle saddle here is? Okay, so pretty well everybody. It's a lineup where you put your paddles in a slot and it moves forward so that it allocates people to play. There's also the TeamReach app, which helps connect people to play, or court booking software like the Court Reserve system used by Hamilton and Niagara-on-the-Lake, without requiring the public to pay additional fees. The public has been active in helping young players grow in the sport, bringing their kids to join them. They have helped to keep the courts clean, and they respect the rules of play. The claim that only the GPA is maintaining the courts is not accurate. Note that free public access can also include time for GPA members too. So I don't want to say that the courts can't be used by GPA members. Next slide, please. Oh, this is the wrong presentation. This is the old presentation, not the one. I haven't been looking up at the screen. That was the presentation that was given on July the 10th. There should have been one.
We're just loading it right now. Just
perfect. Thank you. Okay, back one there, I guess. Do we need to go back through any of the slides? Does anyone? Okay. So the desired model for fair pickleball play in Grimsby. As much as possible, courts should be available for free play by residents, visitors, and the public. While the GPA fulfills an important role in providing their members with access to tournament and structured competitive play, it is not desired as an exclusive organization to permit residents access to the courts. The town website should show when GPA events are happening so that the public can plan their play around those events and they're not surprised. If the GPA is indeed a town-sponsored organization, then their financial records should be readily available to the public on request. This has not been happening. Further public consultation is desired on future court use so that the public can retain control of their tax-funded assets. Next slide, please. Oh, yes, that one. Yep. So there's two proposals suggested here. Both of them are equivalent. Proposal 1 is to implement an equal time sharing schedule on all courts at the Mayfair location and at the future Peach King courts, where the town provides shared access for GPA and public use of the courts. The next slide will, don't go to the next slide, but the next slide will, in a minute, I'll show the sample schedule. The town should then implement a court booking system for the public, similar to what is being used successfully in many neighboring municipalities, such as Court Reserve, to support organized public play. When I've played in the States, they have a paddle saddle, almost in many, many municipalities. Proposal 2, instead of creating a time-sharing schedule, return courts 1 and 2 back to free public use at Mayfair as it was before. The town should have the intention for the future to equitably share court time with the community and with the GPA. And as with Proposal 1, the town should then implement a court booking or a paddle saddle system. Next slide, please. Yep, that one. So this is just a sample schedule. For instance, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, the morning it could be open to the community, 10 a.m. to 12 noon, the Grimsby Pickleball Association could have it, and then the after. It's just a fair and equal allocation of time for the courts through the week. So it's just a sample, and it's just a sample of a potential schedule. Next slide. Yep. Pickleball facilities should be free and welcoming venues for residents, visitors, and the general public. They help boost tourism. The first thing I do when I go to a new city, if I'm staying there for a little while, is to look for the pickleball courts. It's great sport. A lot of places, it's a great place to build community. So please do not limit court use to the authority of a membership organization. Further public consultation about the control of town pickleball courts is greatly desired. We'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to raise our concerns at this meeting. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you, David. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Kelly? Councillor DeFlavio?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, they actually might be for Sarah. Victoria, can you put the schedule back up there, please? The suggested schedule, because I'm trying to understand how. And these questions might be for our director, not for you, Mr. Kelly, but they are related to the presentation. How often are the courts used by the Grimsby Pickleball Association? Like, what hours is there programmed game? Are there programmed games there? And otherwise, are all 4 courts open to the public? Because, for example, I drove by today. There was nobody there. This afternoon, the whole afternoon, I drove by one way, drove by the other way. There was nobody using any of the 4 courts. So I'm just trying to understand how the courts are used. So what exactly is happening there as far as scheduling is concerned. So I don't know if you can give a kind of an overview of that, if it might help us to understand the context for Mr. Kelly's presentation. If you know that, because it might be, it's not, might be the kind of information that you don't know those details. So if you don't, I apologize.
So through the chair, I don't have that readily available. They do use the 3 courts, and certainly, though, any court that is not being in use can be used by anyone at any time. I know the Pickleball Association is interested to come forward to this group as well and share that information, so I can certainly get that information for you and give you more fully detail.
Courts are not being used all the time. It's just at the whim of who's available. It's just the issue comes up if somebody goes on to play and another person ejects them from the play, and the booking or the notice isn't shown anywhere. And they had no way of knowing that they should be off that court. So,
Through you, Chair, the court booking system, do we have anything like that that the town currently owns or manages that is something that we could look at implementing in the future, so that people aren't going from one end of Grimsby? There are some reasonable requests there. We've already made the commitment to the Grimsby Pickleball Association for the 3 courts for this year, and obviously we need to review this. It's something that we'll review, but is it something that where we can implement a booking system for the courts? Is that something that we can do? Do we have access to something like that? We used to have the racquetball courts, for example. Was it always just drop-in, or did we have a booking system that we use for those courts? Is that something that we could implement in the future, like next year, for next season, if we wanted to do that?
So through the chair, there are certainly systems out there. It's not something we have done up until this point. I know we've had requests for the outdoor rink and other facilities similarly, so we also might want to look at that more broadly as well as to what the implications of that are. We'd have to look at the cost, the hosting, and all those types of things. I would need to take it away with the team. But in short, there certainly are programs that do that type of function out there.
Through you, Chair, last question. So do those programs require proof of residence? Is there a way because obviously we want to make sure that it's Grimsby residents that get first use of these courts prior to other people. I mean, we want everybody to be able to be part of, to use the courts. Don't get me wrong. Mr. Kelly said he goes to other municipalities and looks for the pickleball courts to use. I get that. But we do want, if there's a booking system in place, I want to ensure that that booking system gives a priority to the Grimsby taxpayers that paid for that. Is there a way to implement something like that, or is that kind of impossible?
Through the chair, the honest answer is we have other booking systems that have had residency requirements, and there are always ways around it. So are there ways to try to promote that? Yes. But are there ways to work around it? Yes, there are as well. So they're a little bit tricky to do. Oftentimes, too, to really, truly validate residency, you're often having somebody actually do that. So it can be a little bit. So then you're looking into maybe a database. Like, I could get into it further if we wanted to take that way and do some work on it. I'm going to say it's not as simple as maybe it would seem to really do it accurately, and we do find there are ways to work around, especially when it's group play. You only need one person, right?
So I'd like to continue this as well with the questions. So if there's any, because I have some questions of my own as well. Councillor Howe?
I think we're going to be just kind of going around the horn. They've given us a lot of information, and you said that one of your presentation was changed up. I did not see that, obviously, if it came in today. But just to piecemeal it, we can't piecemeal it. We can't try to make sense out of it as we sit here, and not until staff get this back to staff, get a report, get them to sit down with everybody, or what, 2 major players, I guess, 2 or 3 major players, to sit down and talk about it. But it's going to like trying to do brain surgery with a knife and a fork at home. If we do it here, let's get it home. and by home, I'm talking staff. And I've got a resolution that would suggest that. That would, we would receive the delegation of Mr. Kelly's and refer it to staff to report back to the next Community Services Committee meeting, and that discussion be deferred until the staff report is received. In other words, so we've got information and we know what the heck we're talking about instead of just kind of fumbling around. So that's, I would move that.
Yeah, I respect that resolution. However, I just would like to just ask a few more questions of the delegate, if that's okay, and then we can consider the resolution. Is that okay? Okay, I just have two questions. I just want to get clarification as well, just so I have the information. So just two questions. How many people are using your app or like are trying to use the unstructured, way of fair play? And also, what are the prime times that you consider the most used that you would like to be able to access more? Because I drove by at 8 a.m. this morning. All 4 courts were available. I drove by at 4:10-ish, and there were 2 people that were just about to come on the courts. That was it. And then I came around 5-ish just before this meeting, and I can't remember. I think there were people playing at that time. So I'm just curious what the times that we need to, consider for the public. If you could provide that, that would be helpful.
Last night, the courts were crowded. I imagine evenings are good public time because a lot of people work during the day, evenings and weekends. Can I ask anybody here, or if any?
Unfortunately, we can't. However, I think the resolution is hopefully to get a little bit more public input later. So, okay. So. Unfortunately, you can't. You are more than welcome to submit your questions or email. I think Councillor Howe is suggesting that we get a little bit more public input and we have the public involved.
I'm not concerned with the way it's presented. It's now August. This has been set up for this year.
Unfortunately. I 100% understand what you're saying. This is just procedurally how we have to go about it. Victoria, if you want to chime in about procedure. Oh, Councillor Korstanji, if you want to, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So you might not know this, but the pickleball, I'm sure there are seasons, because there's indoor, there's outdoor, and I'm sure there are seasonal memberships and stuff like that. So this arrangement, it could be because it was made in this season, could be in this season. Would you be, the proposal is to go back to staff and meet, and both sides meet. Would you be agreeable to discussing those 2 options? I'm just trying to think of because we could just end up back here with the same thing if there's not something on the plate for both sides, and these are your options. And so,
Cooperative solution is excellent. So yes, of course, be happy to meet.
And I would just like to piggyback on that as well. I would happily move into some kind of middle ground if you needed somebody else to, I'm sure our committee members are all, committed to trying to find that middle ground. So if you wanted to get together and kind of figure this out, I'm sure there's a compromise that we can have. And I think that's what Councillor Howe's motion is suggesting. So we'll go ahead with the motion right now. It was moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Councillor DeFlavio. Resolved that the delegation from David Kelly be received and referred to staff to report back to the next Community Services Committee meeting, and that the discussion be deferred until the staff report is received. All in favor? Okay. And that is, sorry, did you, okay, and that's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for your delegation. So if any members of the audience would like to stay, you can stay. It's not going to be super exciting after this, but if you wanted to exit right now, you can as well. So. Okay, so we'll just have a recess for 2 minutes as everybody exits. Thank you.
I can tell you when they're, do you want to write your email down and then I'm happy to send you an email.
No matter what you decide.
I know addresses were taken off. Yeah. But I thought phone numbers.
I appreciate you coming. Thank you. Bye.
So you're a counselor and our counselor yeah.
Great. Dave Donnerlando, no. Okay, great. I'll email you when it's ready. Yeah, no problem. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, we will resume the meeting in 1 minute. So if you'd like, Councillor DeVoley, if you could continue this conversation out in the hall. Okay, so we're moving on to discussion reports, item number 8. Can I get a mover and a seconder to get the Santa Claus Parade road closure report on the floor for discussion? Okay, Councillor Howe.
Where's the route going to go?
Sarah, if you can get us started on that?
Yeah, I'll just keep the remarks very brief on this one. It's the same route that we're looking.
Sorry, I apologize. I didn't get a seconder for that. So that was moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Councillor DeFlavio. Okay, continue, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll just, I'll keep my remarks brief on it. It's similar as to most every year pretty much with the parade. So same route closure that we're looking at for 2024. We are putting the road closure permanent a little bit early because there's been some changes with the region as to how we're doing road closures. We just want to make sure we have adequate time to work through all of that. So I think otherwise it's probably pretty straightforward and probably also pretty familiar to all of you.
Councillor DeFlavio?
Through you, Chair. So when the downtown work is being done, have you discussed the route that's going to need to be taken when the closure occurs? No, next year, right? It'll be 2025. So has there been any discussion about what's going to happen with the parade route while the downtown work is occurring?
Through the chair, so that is correct. So we do expect next year that there will be disruption to the parade route. No, we have not finalized a route revision. We'll work with a variety of partners for that, but certainly it's on the committee's radar.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Resolve that report DCS 2435, Grimsby Santa Claus Parade Closure 2024, dated July 23rd, 2024, be received, and that one, that council endorse the event-related road closures on Livingston Ave, Main Street West on Saturday, December 7th, 2024, for the purposes of a parade which will be forwarded for approval to the Niagara region. All in favor? Okay, that is carried. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get the Remembrance Day event road closure report on the floor for discussion? Okay, moved by Councilor Korstanji, seconded by Member Laird. And Sarah, if you can take that away as well, thanks.
Thanks, Chair. So this again is a familiar report from last year. We just closed that section of Main Street West that is closest to the museum and the cenotaph, just to ensure that people attending the ceremonies of the day can do so safely. We often get a really tremendous turnout, so often do need that roadway there for people who are attending the event, but also for some of the presenters, the color guard and such that use that road as part of their staging area. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, so seeing as there are no questions, resolved that report DCS 2436, Remembrance Day 2024, event road closure dated July 23rd, 2024, be received. And one, that council endorse the event-related road closure on Main Street West on November 11th, 2024, to be forwarded for approval by the Niagara region. All in favor? That is carried. And can I get a mover and a seconder to get the facility rental deposit and cancellation fees report on the floor for discussion? Moved by Councilor Korstanji, seconded by Member Breather. And Sarah.
Chair, I'm actually going to ask Trevor to speak to this one, if that's okay.
Sorry for you, Trevor.
Thank you. So this is just some small updates to our facility rental guidelines for facilities. So we own and manage number of facilities that we rent out to third parties, Pump House, Carnegie Building, formerly the Peach King Center, the LAC. So, popular rentals that we get there are, bridal, baby showers, weddings, birthday parties, that type of thing. And unfortunately, we are seeing a bit of an uptick in, keys not being returned, facilities being left in a state of not disrepair, but just not clean, not really meeting the obligations of the contract. So we are looking to institute some refundable damage deposits. So these would be taken in advance of the event. We would refund the money in full following the event, given that there's no issues. In the event that there is a problem, we would claim against that deposit only for whatever the costs that we incur are. And we're also taking this opportunity to update our cancellation and rebooking fees because we are seeing increased demand, especially in the spring, summer months and on weekends. So making sure that there is a penalty so that we're not seeing those facilities unused and not recuperating revenue for those losses. So that's all. There's no large financial impact. These fees aren't intended to drive revenue growth. It's really meant as a deterrent to make sure facilities are being used respectfully.
Okay, Councillor Howe.
Thank you. Through you, Trevor, I'm assuming that maybe to you, with the deposits that we take, I'm assuming that we take a credit card. And I'm just trying to make sure that there's a whole bunch of ways that someone can beat us out of a refund. But if we've got money in hand, or if we got the credit card deposit or made a deposit on it, it makes it that much more difficult for them. And what kind of a system have we got, or is it something we need to look at?
Through the chair. So I am happy to report we've moved on from our give us $100 cash and we'll put it in the safe system for deposits. So we are able to take a deposit as a separate fee through the same system that manages the reservation. So basically you would make a fee for the reservation component, and then you would pay a fee with your credit card or debit card for the refundable deposit component. They're kind of kept separate. And then staff take the opportunity afterwards to fully refund those fees or claim against them once we have a report back from our facilities staff. So we do have the money in hand. You're not chasing people after the event saying, oh, you owe us $200. We would have that money in hand, and we would keep the portion that covers whatever cost that they've caused.
Go ahead, Councillor Howe.
Through you, Chair. Been no issues, like we've got a system in place right now for deposits, right? And that there is penalties, but I'm just trying to narrow it down a little bit. There's a whole lot of scammers out there right now. We know it. Look, take a look at the Airbnb business and what happens there. You know, all kinds of deposits flowing around, but they're never any good. So like, have we looked at it? Are you confident in it?
Through the chair. So the system that would manage those deposits is the same systems that we use for a reservation. So if you book a camp program or buy a membership, it's all built into the same suite. So it's very dependable. We have a lot of experience with it. And we've actually tested this model in a training environment so that once this is approved, we're able to kind of flip the switch and implement this very quickly.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Flavio.
Through you, Chair. So I noticed that there's a different schedule of fees, as there always been for nonprofit and for-profit, for meeting room rentals, community room rentals, et cetera. Do we ask for proof of nonprofit status, like a nonprofit business number? Like, how do we determine a nonprofit, or do we just take people's word for it? The reason, and further to that, the Grimsby Pickleball Association, which is a $15 per member fee, is that a non-for-profit organization, and are they registered or in the process of registering? Because that's important information when it comes to how we allocate that time as well. So.
Through the chair. So in terms of how we manage not-for-profit organizations in our booking systems, that would be for facility rentals, you actually have to have like a business account with us. So you can't, call as a citizen and say, can I have the not-for-profit rate? We would say, okay, you want the not-for-profit rate, what's your organization, phone number, address, all of that. If there's any concern, we could do a quick website check. Generally speaking, we're working with organizations we work with on an ongoing basis that we have a good relationship with. As for the Pickleball Association, I can get some more information in terms of, you can be a not-for-profit and not be incorporated. You can incorporate as a not-for-profit. The standards you have might be outlaid in your own bylaws or in your constitution. So there are some checks and balances that we can institute as staff when we're working with community organizations, and I'm sure that'll be part of this conversation with pickleball.
All right, resolve that report DCS 2437, facility rental deposit and cancellation fees dated July 23rd, 2024 be received. And one, that the Community Services Committee recommends council approve an amendment to bylaw 2324, Schedule M, recreation facility rentals to include the proposed fees in this report. All in favor? It's carried. Can I get a mover and a seconder to get the Community Services Department update report on the floor for discussion? Moved by Councillor Howe, seconded by Member Breather. And Sarah, if you can update, please.
So through the chair, I'll just go through a few of the items and then happy to take any questions at the end. So just touching on Casablanca Waterfront Park, that park has now opened. We are still working on finalizing a few of the items. We knew that would sort of be the case, but we wanted to open what we could early on in the summer. I am pleased to report a little update from today. The accessible beach mat into the beach area, and that new section was installed today. So that is now in there as well, which is great news. In the update here, just sharing what we are looking at doing in that westerly portion of the park, so over by the Hunter Road area along Place Polonaise Drive, and you can see we're going to be doing some work to restore that seed and sod area, the turf area, which I know needs some work, but we are also looking at installing some trees in among that area and providing some shade. So you can see on page 2 of the document sort of what the tree plan is intended to be there. Our Parks and Open Space Coordinator has given some careful attention to make sure that we're planting trees and species that are native to the area that will do very well in this space for shade, but also maintain some viewing to the lake for both the residents and the park goers as well. So you can see that image there. We are going to post it as well in the park so that the people that are using the park and the residents in the area will have an idea of what's coming. Some of that work will be early fall. It's just a much better time to be planting trees than, say, right now. So that is work that will be coming. And pickleball courts, which we've already sort of talked to, but I will just really briefly mention that, as staff, this is our second year of operating those courts. It's really exciting to see so much demand and interest in pickleball, because I think we can clearly say our investment of those 4 courts are being very well used. I guess that is a positive to take away. I think staff are really keen to meet with both of the groups and even others that may be involved in the community that aren't affiliated with either group, to see how we can come up with some gains to really come up with the best schedule going forward. I think there are some opportunities to have some good collaborations, and we look forward to taking that away and doing that work. Peach King Center construction update. Hopefully you had a chance to perhaps see it as you were driving in. The demolition phase of the project is largely complete, and they're starting to now work at footings in the building. You can see them digging quite a bit of dirt. So you can see it pulled back basically as far as it's going to go. The project's proceeding really well. They've been there every day working away. And I have to say as well, I'm really impressed with how tidy they have been, especially with the proximity of residents in that area, and just with the splash pad and the sports fields around. They've really taken really great care to try to limit the dust and the dirt and the noise, and really been very tidy about their demolition. So I think that's a wonderful thing for the company to have done, the construction company. A little bit of an update on the operational plan. You'll see in the diagram on page 5 just how we intend to operate when we do open again in September. So both of the ice pads will be functioning middle of September till end of March, and then in the end of March it will close fully again until we reopen hopefully the whole new facility as one. So it will be a little bit of a different experience coming to the arena when people come this season. It really will just be go into the hallway, go into your dressing room, go into your arena room, and that's all you're going to get. But it does allow us to make sure that all of our ice programs can continue, so we're pleased with that. The Peach Kings have made the decision that they are going to continue their games for the duration of that season at the Peach King Center. We have had quite a number of conversations with them in terms of capacity and some of the limitations that come with that, but all things considered, they feel like that's their best option, so we are going to work with them on that. The splash pad has been open, and we're happy to say, other than that slight delay, we've been able to keep the splash pad open so far throughout the entire summer without any disruptions. And again, I do just attribute some of that to the construction team's tidiness and attention to those things. The Civic Recognition Program is open right now, receiving nominations, so that is all available on our website for anybody who has citizens or community groups that you might want to recommend or put forward. You can put forward those nominations. And then we intend to hold the Civic Awards ceremony in November here at Town Hall. The Parks Master Plan is proceeding well. There's been a number of consultations that have been done. They've been at the farmers market. I believe they've started as well right now with the randomly selected household surveys that are being done by a research firm. So those are phone calls. Once they are done as well, we will be posting just saying that they are going on so nobody thinks it's a scam. And we've been reaching out to a number of different groups, specialty groups. I know council members have also been contacted, trying to get as much feedback as we can into that plan. I'm sure all of you saw the Coronation Park vandalism that did occur, unfortunately, back in June. Just did want to actually say thanks to the Niagara Regional Police for really being fantastic about trying to be proactive and trying to identify perhaps who may have done some of the damage to the park. They were really supportive of all of that. And our staff have procured some new bollards to go into the park. We are going with something that's a little bit more substantial, just hopefully making that something that's going to last a little longer in the park as well. Unfortunately, I will just add we have had a similar scenario happen in one of our other parks with bollards as well, so it's something we're going to be keeping an eye on and working with Niagara Regional Police to hopefully increase a bit of monitoring. The microforest location is something our staff are continuing to work for, so we are right now looking at a location at the Grimsby Lions Pool area. So you can see that area noted on page 8 of where we're looking at installing that forest. So that is something that is intended to be done in September. We were fortunate to hear that we have got another TD tree planting project that will be done up at Southwood Park. I believe this is the 6th year in a row we've done it, and each year it's been about 150 trees or shrubs, so really fantastic investment into Southwood Park over all of those years. And that planting will occur in October. Oops, I just lost my place. Sorry, I just lost my place. Centennial Park improvements, that project is nearing completion. So if you've been to Centennial Park recently, up by the baseball diamonds, which is at the very back of the park, our staff have installed a walking path all the way around the park area. We have ordered outdoor fitness equipment, and that equipment has been installed but hasn't been opened quite as of yet. And there'll be signage that also explains how to use the equipment. And right now, I believe actually this week, the staff are installing a pathway to make getting up that hill into that park area more accessible. So it will be a grade that makes it fully accessible to get up back into that space as well. We'll also be adding some trees and benches into that area. It should be completed in the next few weeks, and that is a project that was largely funded through, I'm not going to remember, the Canada Healthy Communities Fund, I believe it was called. We added 2 accessible swings to 2 of our parks in Mayfair Park and also Lakewood Gardens Park. This was largely a request of some neighbors that we knew had community members who would particularly enjoy these swings, so just wanted to mention that our staff were quick to get those installed. Our user fee study is moving along. We're actually awarding the project today, so you'll see that advance as well, and probably will take into early new year to have that work completed. The Grimsby Lions Community Pool is having a really successful season. There's been a number of heat alert days where we've been able to offer free swimming, some partnerships with Grimsby Benevolent Fund to offer some swimming lessons. We also have a pilot program offering 5 adaptive family swims this year, which is catering to families with children with exceptionalities and including their entire family in that swim. And the first was held on July the 13th, and certainly we can give some feedback on that when the season is concluded. And also just wanted to mention our Grimsby Marlin swim team. We've had a swim team for a very, very long time, but they've actually reached 100 participants and is the largest swim team in the Niagara region. I think it just speaks to some of the great work that that team is doing. The Grimsby Museum's also been doing lots of great work. They have a whole bunch of camps occurring at their facility throughout the summer, culture camps and also mad science camps. They're looking at doing some Grimsby Beach walking tours, and their Canada Day celebration was quite successful as well. Some of you may have seen the Grimsby branded merchandise that our team produced. It was happening in Grimsby and other events as well. It has gone over extremely well. So we'll continue to offer that at events throughout the season, and then may also make it available in the museum or art gallery or different locations where people can pick those up. Music in the Park, they held their first event on July the 11th. It was very well attended, and people were really wanting to see more of that occurring. So they're actually going to do 2 more this season. We also have the movie nights in the park, again, are always generally very well attended, and there's several of those occurring as well throughout the summer. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Cristangi?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I have lots of comments. So, first of all, Music in the Park, I attended. It was fantastic, and it was very well orchestrated, especially with the balloon animals, the food trucks, the music. There was literally something for every age group, and it was so nice to be able to see parents being able to sit and enjoy the music and the kids running around and playing. And so that was a wonderful event. So very well done. Look forward to the next one. Grimsby merchandise I love. I bought a sweatshirt, I bought a t-shirt. I'd like to see the sweatshirt design on a t-shirt, but you know, I got both, so yep. The adaptive swims, love this. Waiting for this for a very long time. Didn't know anything about it though, and don't know the dates. So we need to get, I don't know if it was well attended, but I would imagine a lot of the community does not know that that is going on. So if we could put that on social media with those dates, families always like to plan ahead too. So if we can put all the dates, this is what we're doing, this is what it's for, I think that would be fantastic. It's really just sort of getting the information out there. Super happy about the exercise in the park. I think that's going to be fantastic. Can't wait to see that. Also, the beach mat. I'm going to go see that tonight or tomorrow for sure. I'm really happy to see that we've got that down there now and in time for August, which is fantastic. The trees. So we spoke a little bit at Public Works last night about Grimsby Beach and planting trees and a partnership with the town because the Grimsby Beach have raised money over the several last years with the birdhouses, and they would like to use that to plant trees in Grimsby Beach. So it was more directed for us to direct it here, which is great because trees is on the thing. So if we can sort of maybe partner with them or sort of get that going, that would be fantastic. And I do believe there was permission from MTO in Grimsby Beach to build a microforest on the one little property. So not sure about that, but you can speak to that. But if we could, maybe all the trees, the better. Thank you.
Through the chair, if I can just respond to the last one, I'd be happy to hear about where they would like to plant trees and happy to work with them on that. We have looked at the property that I know one resident in particular was looking at with that MTO lands. We're still in conversation with them about that and actually another property as well. I don't know that they'll just give us permission to do that. I think there may be other things we have to go through, which would including a permission of use or even a fee for use or something like that. So it is on our radar. We haven't quite finalized that and figured that out entirely. So, but I don't know that it'll be as simple as just getting permission to use the trees. So in the interest of that piece still being worked out, we might want to focus on another area for now, and we can still keep that one on the radar and determine how that one proceeds. So if there's any information you want to flip from that from the other meeting or however, we're happy to work with them on a tree planting event. I know our Parks and Open Space Coordinator is eager to do more of those things.
Councillor Flavia?
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Yeah, so the discussion that occurred last night was, as Councillor Kristangi mentioned, there is some money that they've saved up from those birdhouse sales that they have that they'd like to reinvest. So I don't know how we can make that discussion, how we could start that discussion, but Bell Park or one of the areas down there, whether it's starting with some plantings there and moving on, but yeah, they do have money that they'd like to reinvest in their neighborhood, and I think it would be a really good win-win because that's what they've been doing those sales for, is to reinvest in their neighborhood. So I was down there today for the tour of the house that's being renovated, and it's going to be spectacular when it's done. But there are a couple of little kind of parkettes that the town owns down there. I don't know what we own in Auditorium Circle, for example. I'll leave that up to the staff who know a lot better than I do which land is owned by the municipality and which is not. The discussion last night was at Public Works, and it's not really a Public Works discussion because Public Works already plants trees on the roadsides and things like that. If we're talking about a large scale or a bigger kind of planting in parks, then it would be more appropriate for this committee, and that's why Councillor Kristangi brought it up tonight. So,
Director Sweeney?
Thanks, Chair. If I may just add, so the timing of this in many ways is great because part of our 2024 project plan is to actually do some improvements to Bell Park, which does include replacing that playground, but we are trying to look at the park as a whole. I will say that the canopy in that park is fairly mature, so I don't know how many trees we would add there, but maybe a few. But as you mentioned, Auditorium Circle, we do own a chunk of that, and there are some other spots around there, so happy to take it away because it might be really great to build it into that whole project, as sort of the community contribution of those park renovations. And Victoria Terrace Park is also on our plans to do some work in that park area, including the stairs. She's not looking at me. So that is something that is on our radar as well. So it'd be great to couple those pieces all together and perhaps have that as part of that project. So yeah, if there's some contact information or however that goes, I'm happy to take that away and work on that.
Okay, I have some of my own questions or comments. I will say that the entertainment for that music night was amazing. Councillor Kristangi and I were both there. And it was really great because we have like the older adults, they might be going with their friends or family. So we're covering that group. And then we also have the movie nights with the kids, which is fabulous. And I feel like there's a pride in Grimsby because it's like, oh, we have this happening, come, and so it's great. I love that. It's amazing. And people were so receptive to it and they love it. So keep bringing that because that's amazing. Few things. So with the microforest, I'm wondering, so I'll just say my points, and then if you can just respond to them after, that'd be great. So the microforest, that one little plot of land, I'm wondering if we can possibly just extend it. I don't know if there are more trees there, but that it looks like it's right at the top of the base of the parking lot, right? So if we could extend that even more, I think, why not, if we could do it. The Parks Master Plan, we spoke about that today. That was great. The merchandise, I'm wondering if we can also sell that at the farmer's market. I know when we had the 100 shirts, that's where I bought mine, was from the farmer's markets. That might be another good place to get them. And also the library. That's always, a lot of people around there. Civic recognition, this is something that I just thought about now. We have, I know many of us are coaches and we're involved in sports, and we have a lot of coaches that dedicate so many hours volunteering for our community that don't necessarily live in Grimsby. So it would be nice if we could acknowledge some of these coaches. I don't know if there's a separate award or something. I know I'm thinking of a few that, like rowing, for example, hundreds and hundreds of hours a year, and these people come back every year and they're not paid and they're spending all this money on gas and everything. It would be nice to acknowledge them. So if we could somehow incorporate that, I don't know if it's for this year, but if there was something that we could do to say thank you to these coaches or other members of the community that are from outside of Grimsby that are, servicing our area, that would be amazing. So I think that's all I had to add.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of comments. So the microforest is intended to be a fairly small area. A lot of times it's just like a 10 by 10 area. We have looked at what it could be if we extended it out. However, we really do want to maintain the sightlines into that park for safety reasons, and even just making sure they see what into that park. So one of the thoughts has been do that microforest area in that area, and then perhaps we would continue on with plantings that wouldn't really qualify as microforest because we would stick with low-lying. Just so then we could still plant it and maybe not have grass there, but you'd still easily see into the parking lot, the park, and the pool, which we do want to keep visible from the road. From even just a crime prevention standpoint, it's very beneficial to have it viewable. So we wouldn't, like I said, we wouldn't continue the forest per se, but perhaps a planting plan. In terms of the merchandise, great feedback. We can definitely take that away. We do have to be a bit careful how many events I send my staff to right now because they're doing a lot of events on these weekends, but we can definitely take the farmers market and library ideas away. And for civic recognition, I think what you're describing is something our team has discussed is a bit more of a volunteer recognition program. So it might not be sort of civic focused, but it'd be more that you're the volunteerism that's occurring in the community. That is something that we have talked about as a team. Krista, one of our recreation supervisors, has talked about doing that. We just haven't been able to quite pull that off this year with, I think, just a little bit with the shifting of programs and all that. It's been a little bit busy, but I think that is a program we could take away. Others do it, and it is a great program. And it's just a different way of celebrating those contributions, right?
Okay, resolve that report DCS 2438, Community Services Department Update, July 2024, dated July 23rd, 2024, be received for information. All in favor? That's carried. And can I get a mover and a seconder to get the lights in parks notice of motion response report on the floor for discussion? Moved by Councillor Kristangi, seconded by Member Laird. And Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up. So just a bit of feedback on this. So currently, our new parks bylaw does state that parks generally are closing 30 minutes prior to dusk, and that's generally because most of them are in darkness or maybe not bright enough at least to really support play. The exception to that would be lit pathways. So we do acknowledge that pathways, for example, like Coronation Park, which is maybe not the best example today. Normally, Coronation Park would be an example of a lit pathway where you would be permitted to walk through that pathway, but not use the other park areas that wouldn't be fully lit up. And then, of course, Sportsville with lighting would be another area where you could use if they're under permit. So what we would like to do is to look at furthering what we do for lighting in parks is actually have it funnel through the Parks Master Plan as well, just so that we can be a bit strategic across the board as to how we would do that. We do see an interest in having more pathways and having more lighting, just making sure we're being a bit intentional about where we would do that and how we would invest in those things. I will say as well, in terms of using it in preventing crime, I think it can do that, but I also think there's other things that we can do too that we've had success with. If we've had issues in parks, sometimes we've found where seating is, if it's a little bit dark, we've tried to move some seating, or sometimes trimming trees. There's a bunch of different things that we can do to take that away as well. So if there are parks or areas that are flagged of concern, sometimes honing in specifically on those and looking not just at lighting, but all of those other factors as well to try and make them feel more safe can be really helpful.
Resolve that report DCS 2439, Lights in Parks Notice of Motion Response dated July 23rd, 2024 be received for information. All in favor? That is carried. Can I get a mover and a seconder to get the Shoreline Protection Notice of Motion Response Report on the floor for discussion? Moved by Member Breather, seconded by Councillor Howe. And Sarah.
Thank you, Chair, again. So this notice of motion was just asking for an update on some of our shoreline projects. So I've kept it fairly brief, but hopefully it gives the information that was being sought. So for Whitaker Park, we do have that on our budget books this year for a project, and it is to advance with some design and preliminary work. We will be bringing a report to council. It's most likely going to be September. That's looking at the Whitaker Park area and also the pump house pier as well, just to form some decisions as to how we want to progress with that work and some of this, like that. The whole park area we're trying to look at as a whole. And once that direction is set, then we'll move forward with some of the design work and then moving eventually into construction, hopefully in 2025, depending upon how those decisions are made. For Nellis Beach Park, staff are looking at doing some of that design work in 2025. We know that one is another one that definitely does need some attention. We've actually had some conversation as well with NPCA and a few other partners as well as to what we can, some different options that we can look at to maybe address shoreline in different ways and even use some green solutions. So that could be something that to look forward to. I do want to note that in terms of that beach area sometimes being closed, it's generally not because the shoreline's deemed unsafe. It's because the water level is often so high that there literally has been no beach there. And so that's often why that beach area down there is closed. As well, I'll just make a side note. Sometimes we've had the beach water, it'll say that it's closed, and people made the assumption it's because the water quality isn't safe, and it's actually often just been because there's no beach there. So depending on the fluctuating water level, sometimes it's deemed closed more for that reason than it is for the water. Murray Street Park, we don't currently have a plan to do improvements in that area. Generally, most of that shoreline is considered fairly protected, so we don't have a specific plan for Murray Street Park at this time. Happy to answer any questions. And I should just add, all of those pieces will be coming back to you as we sort of formalize those plans and exactly how we'll be looking at them. So you will have an opportunity to see them in greater detail as they move forward.
Okay, Councillor Cristangi.
Thank you, through Chair. So I'm really happy to see the update on Whitaker Park because I get a lot of emails about it. It's been sort of the way it has been for several years now. So I'm really happy to see that we're sort of looking at it, making a plan. You know, we've got sort of something in mind, which is fantastic. So I think residents will be very happy to hear that it is prioritized as well as along with the pump house and everything like that. So that's fantastic. So thank you very much.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Chair, through you. So much of the shoreline protection that we've done in the past or that the town has done where it wasn't a developer doing it has been funded through grants. So I'm assuming that we're constantly looking for the grants that are available for these types of things, so that because we know the cost of shoreline protection gets into the millions of dollars these days. We're not talking about nickel and dime kind of work. So do we know if there are grants coming in the next cycle that we can apply for? Or is that something that's, always, I'm assuming it's constantly on the radar, but anything that you could see on the horizon?
Through the chair, we're definitely always looking for grants for these types of things, and I think they do come up from time to time, maybe not always focused on shoreline. But there may also be some funding that we can use through some of our existing funds to support that type of work, so we're looking at that as well. One thing I have learned with grants is the further along that you advance a plan as well, with having a design and having, the project sort of moved along, if a grant does come along, you're in a far, far better position to be eligible as well. So some of doing this work right now is to make sure that if things do come along, we're in a position of readiness to be able to apply.
Just to answer that as well, I did speak with MPP Oosterhoff about this, and he actually had forwarded a grant that he suggested that we apply for. So I'm sure you're familiar with it, but we can speak offline. Just going back to this report, I'm satisfied with everything except Nellis Beach Park. That one it's just such a jewel, and I drove by there today because I wanted to see what the water level was like, and yeah, there's beach there, so people are can access it, but the erosion is just awful, and it's really going to eat away at even our parkland up there. So that one I feel like needs something, and it needs something quicker than this report suggests. So I don't know if there's something that we can do to kind of, prioritize that, because, time it's ticking, it's essential. So we can't just let it, hold off, because we're just chipping away at it daily. So I don't know if you can add to that.
So through the chair, I will say both of those projects independently are very big projects, both in terms of their scope and also in terms of their cost. Doing them both concurrently would be very difficult to do, especially with the Peaching Center project and everything else going on, just being quite honest with you. If there's things we can do to move that design piece a little faster, so it's maybe earlier in 2025, possibly, but it is going to take some time to do them. I guess the only thing I would say, if there was we kind of have budget set right now, so we can't really even flip-flop the order of the projects, but I do hear you. I do acknowledge that it is something we need to move forward with quickly, and you're right, sometimes there is beach. I just flag it because sometimes when the water levels are high, it just is confusing to people as to why that is. So I do hear you. I do think even now with the timeline that we have for these two projects, it is ambitious, and I wouldn't want to overpromise it. If that is the case in the 2025 budget, we could try to prioritize it in that year, certainly, to move that along a little bit quicker. But they are big, big projects, as I said, both in terms of resource and in dollars.
So just for clarification, is Whitaker happening at the same time as the pump house? Because I feel like Whitaker isn't quite as much of a priority as the pump house pier. So if it was a matter of the pier that we're talking about, and then we go to Nellis Beach Park, this is just my personal opinion, but because people aren't necessarily accessing Whitaker Beach, whereas the other one is, right? So I don't know if there was something where we could prioritize Nellis Beach over Whitaker. That would be my preference. Again, that's just my preference, but I don't know.
So through the chair, so the reason that we have Whitaker and the pier together is because of their proximity, right? And we do want to consider them as one. So certainly from doing the work perspective, given how close they are, they're literally joined even by a piece of land. When we're talking about the shoreline protection and we may have to do environmental assessment and permitting, it's just it's far better for us to treat it as one. It literally will be seen as one project from our eyes, and it's just because they are connected, they are so close together. So I think we'll get better value for the work, and also just that shoreline piece really should be continuous that we look at from that full end.
Thanks for that. Okay. Resolve that report DCS 2440 shoreline protection, notice of motion response dated July 23rd, 2024 be received for information. All in favor? That is carried. Do we have any other business pertaining to the committee? No? Okay. So our next Community Services Committee meeting is scheduled for September 25th, 2024 at 6:30. And this concludes our meeting. Thank you.